Hello everyone, today we will be looking at the Pullman neighborhood found on the south side of Chicago. Pictured to the right is George Pullman. He owned the Pullman company that built sleeper and high-end train cars in the late 1800s. George Pullman wanted to create the perfect utopian works town for his employees. He did this by buying 4,000 acres of land in 1880 and hiring Solomon Beeman to design a town and buildings. Pullman planned to attract the best workers to his town by offering above-average living conditions and wages to his workers. He thought by doing this he could create the perfect work and life environment for his employees. By 1884, 531 houses were built, along with parks, a marketplace, and a shopping center. The town would soon be outfitted with many other buildings that a community would need, like a church, stables, and a hotel. The Pullman Company town would end up housing over 9,000 people. Pullman wanted to make sure that his employees would work up to their full potential. He did this by making sure that the town was as clean as possible. The town is fully equipped with a sewage system and running water, which was well above the average living conditions in Chicago at that time. Pullman used more subtle ways to motivate his employees. On the maps, point A, B, and F are all public buildings that residents would use and work out of regularly. The residents who were higher up in the company got the best spots in town, closest to work in all of the shopping centers. People who were lower on the totem pole lived further away from where they worked, marked at points D and E. So every day when blue-collar people would walk to work, they would have to go past more affluent houses. Pullman thought this would act as a reminder to the blue-collar workers as to what they could become if they kept working hard for the company. Residents were highly encouraged to use the town's facilities such as the parks and the gym, for personal and family use. However, there is little evidence to show that anyone ever did. George Pullman was terrified of unions. He didn't like for his employees to congregate in large numbers for events that were not organized by the company. He was afraid they would unionize and cause a ruckus, so people rarely used the parks and gym because of the economic separation mentioned in the slide earlier, and because public gatherings were discouraged by George Pullman. Housing was top-notch. All of the executive houses were made out of clean brick and some siding. These houses were no more than 2 rooms deep to allow for plenty of light and ventilation to pass through the house. They also had the most interior detail of all the buildings in Pullman, to show that they were for the heads of the company. Rent at these houses ranged anywhere from $28 to $50 per month, whereas a regular house would only cost $2 per month. The arcade row houses were made for foremen and other people who were in the upper middle range status at Pullman. These houses were more modest than the executive houses. They were made out of brick with some carpentry detail on the exterior. The arcade row home houses were heavily influenced by the Dutch colonial style. This influence can be seen in the barn-style roofs as well as the dormers. The Queen Anne-style houses were the most modest houses in Pullman. These houses had the most tenants. The architect Beeman also used lots of carpentry to create a picturesque finish to these houses. This made them look quaint in comparison to the clean, crisp brick that was used on the executive houses. Beeman also used lots of intricate brick detailing to make each house different. This would help avoid a cookie-cutter feel that often comes to houses when they are mass-produced in a community. The company town functioned properly for 10 years until 1894. In 1894, the Pullman Company had to lay off workers and cut wages without lowering the cost of living. This did not sit well with the employees, so they went on strike. After 2 months, it turned violent. The U.S. military had to be called in to settle the tension. After the strike, the town never fully recovered. George Pullman died in 1897, and the town was annexed by the city of Chicago the following year in 1898. The city forced the company to sell its houses back to the residents, while still allowing the Pullman Company to work out of the area, and thus ended a utopia.